Okay, hi, I'm Malachy. Thank you. Just enjoy that while it lasted, because there's not going to be any more of it. I'm Malachy. I'm a bit different. I've been described as the Salvador Dali of comedy. Now, Salvador Dali, for those of you who don't know, which, let's face it, probably most of you, was a renowned Spanish painter from the 20th century, and the highly surrealistic nature of his work would often lead people to ask him, "Do you do drugs?" To which Dali would always famously reply, "I don't do drugs, I am a drug." And in a similar fashion, I don't do jokes. You see that bit there? That was itself a joke. That's the level I'm operating on. See, what I've done now, quite cleverly in fact, is I've subverted your expectations. You thought there was a punchline, but the punchline is that there is no punchline. And furthermore, I've managed to make a highbrow reference while simultaneously and self-deprecatingly making myself the butt of the joke, which I think we can all agree made it better. Again, there's not too many laughs there. But one thing you'll also notice is that I didn't insult anyone's intelligence by spelling the joke out either. I just left it hanging there for you to figure out for yourselves, which ultimately leads to a more rewarding audience experience. And that's why I'm the best. Now again, I don't know if you can hear this, but it's quite silent, which is fine. I noticed some of the other comics we're talking about before we come out, they were saying that they were a bit uncomfortable with there not being an audience. But for me, I don't mind. I'm very used to prolonged periods of awkward silence in my routine. And it doesn't bother me because silence is good. See, contrary to popular belief, if your joke is met with stony silence, it doesn't mean that it wasn't funny. It doesn't mean that. It just means that it was too clever for the people listening. That's you guys, by the way. So, you hear comics say, "Oh, if one person laughs or whatever, then that's at least something." But in an ideal world, I wouldn't want anyone to laugh at all, because that means I've failed in my mission statement as a comedian. Because again, contrary to popular misconception, it's not about making people laugh. It's about being the smartest man in the room. So, time for a bit of audience participation. Someone throw me a topic. Give me a topic. Anyone? Something off the top of your head. Give me a topic.
Penguins.
What was that, sorry?
Penguins.
Penguins. Okay. Now that sounds very interesting. I'll be sure to look that up online when I get home. So thanks. And that's the audience participation bit done. I've also been referred to as the Michelangelo of comedy, primarily because I lie on my back to paint ceilings and have a very poor understanding of the penis to body ratio in the human male. Not really sure where I'm going with that one. I haven't thought it through, but you'll again notice that I managed to make a highbrow reference in the middle of a lowest common denominator gag about knobs, and I did it effortlessly. So, you know. Yeah, you ever watch like the Great British Bake Off or something, and our master chef, and the stuff that they're making is like, you know, seriously impressive, and the judges are still critical of it. It would blow the average person away. And it makes me think, I wonder what the likes of Paul Hollywood would do when confronted by what's often considered Michelangelo's masterpiece, which is David. You know what he gazed on the 14-foot block of flawlessly carved marble. How he's perfectly captured the apprehension and fear in the eyes and body language. And what he's saying, like, yeah, it's good, Mick, but you know, what's the crack with his dick? Like, why is it so small? But that's the aesthetic they go for. Anyway, at this point, I'd just like to mention that I am contractually obliged to mention Belfast, whiskey, and Belfast Whiskey Week. So that's the electric bill paid. But yeah, this kind of stuff, it's the sort of stuff that, I mean, if you saw it written down, you'd maybe give a wry smile and be like, that's very clever. Perhaps cutting it out and sending it to your university lecturer ex-wife with a note attached saying, thought you might appreciate this. Please take me back. But cursed as I am with being, I mean, let's not beat about the bush here, far too handsome to be a mere comedy writer. I have to stand here on stage where, you know, it doesn't really translate, does it? You see, this is actually really funny, what I'm doing here. What I'm doing is I'm making like a meta reference to what's going on, and if you don't get it now, in a couple of days you will, and it's just going to blow your mind, man. Anyway, moving on from the contractual obligation, does anyone ever notice that people love to hate on the triangle? Maybe I was a bit advanced. Does anyone know what a triangle is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is it?
Instrument.
Yes, I was expecting you to say a shape and then I was going to, you know, do something off that. So let that be a lesson. Don't involve the audience. But yes, it's an instrument which people love to hate on because of its alleged, you know, easiness to play. So they'll say things to you like, why? Play an instrument, do you? Hold on, let me guess. Bet you it's the triangle. And I'm like, yeah. In fact, I played triangle on Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix, which arguably elevated it from a simple blues ballad to something altogether more psychedelic and ethereal. So fuck you. So, have you all been watching these briefings that they're doing on the news? See, this bit here is what we call topical. What I'm doing here is I'm talking about stuff that the audience and you will be familiar with, and it's in order to build up like a rapport, so that you look at me and you're like, yeah, I can trust that guy. I relate to him. I'd like to find out what makes him tick. It's very good. Trust me, you'll like this bit. And so you watch these briefings and you see the politicians talking about the virus and all, and they like to do this. So you'll see them going like this. Once you notice them doing it, you can't stop. Notice I can't stop doing it now either. And this is called the Clinton thumb point, and it's everything that's wrong with the world encapsulated in one stupid gesture that nobody ever does in real life. I love to go into the bakery and say, yeah, how much is that there? Yeah. Now, this came about because, and this is true, you can look this up, teams of like market research guys sat about with pie charts, presumably, and said, you know, after the Vietnam War, the public doesn't really have the stomach for the reality of war, so they now see pointing with your finger as an aggressive gesture, yeah? So, if you want to look macho, point with your thumb. And it makes sense because, as you know, the last thing you want to do when you're publicly advocating for the mass bombardment of densely populated civilian areas is to come across as aggressive. So if you point with your thumb, then you'll avoid that problem. Market research. You know, a guy in my work told me that he had a degree in marketing. If I had a degree in marketing, I would market myself by not telling people I had a degree in marketing. So, during this lockdown, again, this is another topical reference. So what I'm doing is I'm talking about stuff that, again, you're all going to be familiar with. Have you ever seen a comedian do that? I don't think so. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of training and exercise, which is great. You know, it is a good thing. And it makes me think, it reminds me of, you get a real, it's good when you bump into someone that you haven't seen in a while. And they look you up and down and they're like, Jesus, are you on the steroids, mate? And you get a real feeling of smug self-satisfaction when you can look him in the eye and say, nah man, I guess I've just always naturally had a really tiny dick. And that's the aesthetic, as I say, Michelangelo's David. See that bit there? That's what we call, that's a callback. So, you know, if you'd listened earlier, that'll pay off, trust me. So yeah, one more thing I would like to mention. Earlier on, I did say that, you know, I crumpled up that piece of paper. That was a joke. I did that, you know, to casually dismiss it because it was like, oh, imagine doing that. You know, there was. If you paid attention earlier, right, then that bit works. Trust me. So yeah, I did want to say one thing about Belfast, and it was about there's a man called Billy Connolly. I don't know if you heard of him, but Billy Connolly's a comedian, and he did a gig. He uses a lot of the same sort of techniques. You maybe check him out. But he did a gig in the Waterfront Hall, and part of his routine was he mentioned, again, to build a rapport with the audience, he mentioned the Harland and Wolff cranes, and he was like, you know them big orange cranes? And then he went, in fact, you know, that's kind of funny that they're orange, because, you know, Belfast and orange, haha, you know, do you get it? Do you get it? And the whole time I was watching this, I just thought, they're yellow. You know, are you on glue, Billy Connolly? You don't get to just Mandela effect your audience into believing something that isn't true. And you especially don't get to do it for the sake of shoehorning in a predictable gag. You know, Catholics and Protestants, what are they like, eh? You know, Billy Connolly is a fucking hack. And if you don't believe me, you can look this clip up, and here's where the proof is. Because when he says this, everybody laughs. And that means that he's failed as a comedian. See, again, if you'd been paying attention earlier to the information that was presented to you, then that bit will really pay off. And you'll be like, yeah, see, he's called back to the bit at the start. So, you know, that's how it's done. And if you don't get it now, trust me, someone will explain it to you. Someone smarter than me, and it'll be really funny, trust me. Anyway, that's just about it for me. So I just want to say, drink whiskey and come to Belfast. And Wu-Tang, as always, is for the children. So peace out.